Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the SERMAPod. This is the podcast for the Sports and Entertainment Risk Management Alliance. We are getting close to 100. We are very excited to provide this content to you. I am Rich Lenkov. I am the CEO and founder of SERMA. I'm also the frequent host of the podcast. And today we've got a really relevant topic, one that's been breaking over the last month or so, involving Drake, one of the most prominent recording artists out there, who has brought a lawsuit that is very interesting. And we've got maybe one of the foremost experts in this area to discuss it, Kevin Casini. Kevin is the VP of Business and Legal Affairs for RME. He is also an adjunct professor of law for Quinnipiac and has held that role for about 12 years. In his role as attorney, educator, and advocate, he has handled issues like this for a long time. He's a member of lots of organizations that are very relevant to this topic, including the Reporting Academy, the Copyright Alliance, and Songwriters of North America. His client roster has included Grammy winners, Emmy winners, Billboard Music Award winning writers and artists, RIAA gold and platinum certified recording artists, lots of others, including producers, DJs, actors, and authors. Kevin, thank you so much. I'm a little winded. That's only part of your incredible background, but we're really pleased to have you on the SERMAPod.
Thanks very much, Rich. I have that all there for my mother whenever it disappears. She gets very happy to hear all those things.
Absolutely. We want to keep Mrs. Casini happy. I know she listens to all these podcasts.
Yes, she does.
So talk to us about this Drake. Explain to us about this Drake lawsuit, because it is rather groundbreaking in many respects. So maybe break it down, and then we'll talk about its relevance and explain it a little more.
Yeah, we're about a week early than I would have loved, because in a week's time, there's going to be a hearing to determine if he can go forward with part of what he's asked for. But let me back up to the beginning. What we have is essentially a search for the truth or for facts that could be the basis for a lawsuit. We don't quite have one just yet. So no one's been served with a complaint. Nothing's been returned to court to start an actual proceeding. These are pre-proceeding motions that Drake and his team have filed. What they're asking for state of New York and state of Texas to grant is opportunity for preservation and review of communications, documentation, financial transactions, and then in Texas specifically, to depose people that might have more information about what they believe is true, which is that there is some type of organized, concerted, coordinated effort between a bunch of different parties to suppress his releases or his music and maybe artificially or fraudulently bolster those of his now sworn enemy.
So, it's a rap beef, basically, that's gone rogue. I mean, we all have followed a lot of these rap beefs, a lot of these, beefs in music. How unusual is it for that to get to this stage where there is an actual legal proceeding initiated?
Yeah, I don't know how much street cred you get filing, RICO claims against other artists in rap and hip hop. I haven't seen or heard of anything like this. Now, lots of things that happen in rap and hip hop are posturing, right? It's about stage performance and it's about public perception more than anything else many times. So this could be part of that as well. I've also heard online that maybe this is an opportunity for Drake to get some leverage with Universal to renegotiate some deals or maybe even get out of existing deals. I'm not sure how that would play out, but I suppose that's possible. I'm fairly familiar with the attorneys that he has working on this. They're very serious people. I don't think that they would take part in something like this if they just thought that it was going to be a play for street cred or something like that, or an opportunity to try to drag Kendrick Lamar down somehow. So there must be something to it more than what we've already seen. But what that is, we don't know yet. If New York is willing to grant them access to the documentation that they've asked for, which are any and all communications from Universal regarding the Kendrick Lamar release, Not Like Us, that could have gone to third parties that would have been radio stations, streaming services, influencers, anybody that could have placed it or maybe even fraudulently or artificially bolstered the stream success, popularity of it. And also financial transactions from anyone that was associated with Universal in connection with Not Like Us. Then maybe there will be more that comes of it. Or in Texas, if he's allowed to go forward, Drake, with deposition of iHeartMedia executives or employees or influencers that claim that they know some things, then maybe there's more there. But right now, we don't really know what the end game could be because we don't really know what the full story is.
All right. So the term the Streisand effect has been mentioned in discussing this case. What is that, and does it apply here?
Streisand effect is a term coined by a gentleman who works at the intersection of copyright and tech named Mike Masnick. And it stands for the proposition that in trying to keep something under wraps or operate behind the scenes or keep people from finding out about something, you take steps that inevitably bring those things to light and shine more attention on them or give more interest to the public so that they go and find those types of things, right? It's because there was obviously Barbra Streisand is a very public figure and has been for most of my life. There were things that her family was engaged in. I think one of her daughters or stepdaughters was having an event, and she wanted to take Barbara active steps to prevent paparazzi essentially from descending on this event. In doing so, she brought attention to the event, and more people ended up paying attention to it and trying to find out exactly what the particulars around the event were, right? So that concept plays out in lots and lots of places. Here, if the truth is that Drake is hoping that the popularity of Not Like Us goes away, what he may have done is now extend the shelf life for the popularity, bring more people into it, right? It's unlikely that the entirety of the defamation bar or the people who engage in the practice of defamation would be going to listen to this song. But now many of us are if we hadn't before. And so it ends up leaking outside of the cultural parameters of just rap and hip hop or just, popular zeitgeist into professional analysis. And now we're having a conversation about it on your very popular podcast. And now more and more people will find out about it or spend more time listening to it, which of course will drive the streams for it, not artificially, completely organically. And then we'll let people dissect the language and the spirit of the lyrics that are there and give more thought to the things that Drake ostensibly would like us not to think of anymore, or at least not give credit to.
Yeah, interesting how that could backfire for sure. Kevin, so Drake is essentially saying that UMG should have edited or refused to release the diss track. It raises a lot of questions. I mean, to what extent does a label have the responsibility to edit content? Should they do that? Where does that end? Who decides, the difference between a diss and defamation? I mean, that's all an incredibly slippery slope that is hard to hold a record label to, that after all is in the business of, releasing art and generating a profit.
Yeah, I don't know that if you are an artist at a label, you want the label engaging in censorship at that level, right? But let's first mention the elephant in the room. Universal is Drake's label as well. It's unlikely that if Universal were to implement some type of, review process or content moderation process, that it would only apply to Kendrick Lamar. Certainly it would apply to Drake as well. Now, we've seen other artists, big ones, Beyonce most recently, go back and edit the language in tracks that are released. You can do that. Everything's digitized and streaming. You can change those things. You've seen movies on streaming services do the same thing. Would Drake want Universal to go back through all of his released music and edit it as well? I don't know the answer, but I would contend probably not. And so you kind of have to ask yourself, does he know what he's really requesting or requiring of his own label here? And does he want to actually be faced with it as well himself. As far as defamation versus diss, art has always brought with it opinion on other people, opinion on other art, and certainly contemporaries, right? And that's not just specific to music either. But in rap and hip hop, historically, bringing your beef forward through your releases, whether they're singles, whether it's, mixtapes, or it's going live on morning radio in New York or LA, or it's now through streaming services, it's always been part of the culture. So the street cred thing probably takes a knock because your response is supposed to be through your art. If you bring a response for a RICO action through court, it seems like you're not really playing by the rules that we've all agreed are part of the game, right? And the benefit to all of us as fans is that we get to look in and peer into these. Beef is not unique. Now, when I was coming up, it spilled over into violence far too often and really went well beyond artistic expression. But remaining in the realm of artistic expression, there has to be a lot of leeway given to artists to be able to do these types of things, to speak out on things that they think are improper, whether it's actions against them or towards them, or just in general, if they don't like the way people are comporting themselves, well, their art is their expression, and that's their means to do so. Defamation rises to a much different level, right? You have to prove that the person who spoke did so with a knowingness or at least a disregard to likely falseness of what they're saying. It can't be opinion. It likely can't be art either. And as a public figure, again, Drake needs to be careful what he's asking for here. A, he's engaged in these types of beefs before, so he could open himself up for defamation actions against him. But B, he will bring more light to and scrutiny on exactly what it is he claims Kendrick is saying about him, that he thinks Kendrick is presenting as truth. Because an ultimate defense to all of defamation is truth. If it turns out that what Kendrick is saying actually has an element of truth to it, not only will that be bad for Drake, but we'll all know about it now, whereas we wouldn't have before.
Yeah, I think nothing has less street cred than a hip hop artist trying to rhyme the word racketeering.
I don't know. He just released a single that was on SoundCloud for about 15 minutes and came back down, where I think he made an allusion to he and LeBron being closer than ovens in kitchens or something like that. I'm not sure I got that either, although maybe I'm not the intended audience.
Yeah, maybe at concerts in the future, instead of quoting their lyrics, they'll be quoting from the different statutes or case law, throwing case law back at the stage. Who knows? Maybe it's a whole new era. Payola and bots have been described as rampant in the industry. What implications do you think that has on the credibility of these numbers that we're talking about, streaming numbers? How hard is it to
that's a good question.
What those are?
There are some internet personalities and influencers that have said they were responsible for millions, maybe tens of millions of streams through, their marketing channels or their bot farms of Not Like Us. I don't know if that's true. I suppose this lawsuit, or if there is a lawsuit, might bear that out, whether or not that's true. But again, if I were Drake and his legal team, I would be very careful how I proceed here, because if Universal does engage in this practice, and I'm not saying that they do, but if it turns out that they have in the past, is it likely that they've only done so for Kendrick? Probably not. And then is it likely that they also applied the same marketing tactics to any of Drake's past releases? It seems like that would be part and parcel with what they do for all the major acts, if that's what they do. And again, protecting myself and all my employers and my mother who's listening, I'm not saying Universal engages in these practices, but Drake is. And if he's saying that, is he saying they do it for everybody except for me? I don't know if that's true.
Kevin, Drake commented on this recently, and I think he's trying to reframe the discussion from this track discussion, or me trying to go after this other artist through a lawsuit, to this broader issue of fairness and transparency and accountability, and corporate versus artist, which I think, frankly, is a smarter argument for him, right? Obviously, and one that we've seen before, right? I mean, quite, notably, Taylor Swift is still in the
Yeah.
process of re-recording a lot of her music very successfully, arguing that she was, mistreated by that. So, how does this legal action, how might that affect this issue going forward? And what do you think the trend is? I mean, do you think the trend is towards allowing artists to maintain more freedom and earn more income versus the labels?
Yeah, those two concepts of freedom and income are kind of separable, right? Labels have been able to reinvent themselves in some regard in the distribution model now in the digitization landscape. And labels are offering, better percentages, more points to their artists, right? The splits are much, much better than they used to be. That doesn't necessarily mean you have more freedom, but if Drake is using this as the vehicle to shine a light on what he thinks are changes that need to be made in the recording industry, I think it's a funny vehicle to do that with. It's kind of self-serving. He could set up a vanity label that he actually operates on his own. He's got enough money to do so and do things, as he sees it the right way, and offer a new model on his own. I'm sure he could get partners to help him out do that. That was distanced from any of the majors, Universal, Warner, Sony, any of them, if he doesn't like the way they operate. I don't see right now in what we know about his claims how those would lead directly to some type of industry-wide change. He's not asking for further investigations into these practices, and he's really couched them all in terms of how one song or one release that was in the marketplace against his was artificially bolstered and kept him down. Now, his claims have to lead to financial damage or reputational damage at some point, right? He can't really assert that there's some type of institutional or industry-wide correction that needs to be made, and so he's the vehicle to do that. That's just not what civil law does. But he could take this to the next step if, in engaging in these pre-suit discovery processes, he finds out something that would give rise to legitimized claims around that. But right now, I don't know that I see this leading to that type of wide changing moment for the industry.
All right, last question, totally out of left field. You're in New England. Who's the next Patriots coach?
Old friend Mike Vrabel.
Got to be Vrabel, right?
I think so.
Patriots Hall of Famer.
Yeah, I think so. I don't know why they don't just go through the process the way they're supposed to. Seems like some people think that they've made a deal already and they're just going through the motions. You don't like to see that. But it's what makes the most sense. And I think you can see that the Kraft family, although they were willing to get rid of Bill himself, they're not quite ready to get rid of the entire mystique and era of Belichick. Maybe with good reason, but time will tell if it works out.
Bill, a hot commodity, even though he's not even a few weeks into the North Carolina job, might be back to the NFL soon. Kevin Casini with RME in Quinnipiac College, thank you so much. We really appreciate you coming on. Please come back and keep us updated on this very interesting topic.
You got it, Rich. Thank you.